Well, good morning, and thank you so much for coming in a little earlier. We've juggled it around. It's nice to see you. For those who aren't familiar with our guest today, with Simon going from my right to left, Simon Perry, Alan Livingston. Nice to see you both, Miff McDermott and Graham Moore. Welcome to you all. Lovely to see you all here today, and I'm looking forward to hearing your update in terms of the project. We have before us the presentation, which are we going to put it on the screen as well? We're going to? Fantastic. We do all have it before us anyway, but take it away, Graham. Nice to see you all.
On being re-elected as our council. It's quite exciting to be at your, I think, first meeting. So really appreciate you making time in what must be quite a busy few months and period of time. We thought we'd start actually just by refreshing everyone's memory. You may well have clicked through. There was a link on the slides we sent through, so but we thought we'd just start by refreshing your memory and play our video and see if technology is going to do this and bring sound and so forth. Will it do sound? No, there you go. That's going to be the challenge, isn't it? Okay, and it may not do. What if I? Sorry, give me 2 seconds to see if we can figure the technology links. Because that, no, that didn't work. Because we're muted on the. I don't know how we're going to do that to Zoom. Hey. Anyone? It's not going to work, right? So we won't. I'm gonna assume then, rather than spend too long, I'm going to assume that you've all played our video or seen our video, right? Which is very nice, and there's Matthew Cooper and Simon and myself and others talking about this amazing project. Now I've got to try and get back to the right screen. Go this one. This is a really shitty way to. What's that? We're showing the presentation, was it?
It was the initiative just now.
Yes.
How was it?
Yeah, just do what you did a few moments ago. Because it wasn't.
So from there, I want that. That's got it.
Yeah,
there.
it's looking good now.
Then if I do that,
you're now live on the screen.
Yeah, but if I do
Just
that, I don't get the actual presentation. Oh yeah, there you go. Woohoo! All right, that's actually all I wanted to do today, was just try and figure out the technology. So that's awesome. Great. Well, look, thank you again. Thank you for making time. This is our November update. There's been a heck of a lot going on. It is literally about a year, hey, since this came up. For reminder, Miff says to me about pressing a button here, but I'm hoping you can all hear me anyway, right? It's literally about a year since this came up in the Otago Daily Times, and lots of conversations, and now really on the verge of making it actual, making it real. So we're very pleased. This was going to be the link to our video, but we'll assume you've seen it, and we'll talk to the salient points anyway as we go. There's sort of two parallel projects going on here, and I'll make that distinction. We are really here talking to you about the New Zealand Sports Hall of Fame, and that has a trust in its own right and how that's coming together. But it's encompassed in what we propose, or what's proposed as an extension to the Grassroots Trust Velodrome. And again, you're all obviously familiar with the Velodrome, so don't need to go into the sort of success that's been in its 8.5 years since it was built. We've quoted you numbers before about, I think 2019, 60,000 community user experiences, and a few medals at Commonwealth Games. So there's a really nice blend there of the high performance and so forth. The extension piece here is about financial sustainability. So with my chair of Homer Cycling Charitable Trust hat on, we ironically learned, I think, that we're more profitable during COVID when we were closed than open. And I say that slightly tongue in cheek, but the truism of that is that we have commercial tenancy. The commercial tenancy continued to be serviced while we were closed. And the aim of that commercial tenancy is to subsidize all the community programs that we do. That's what a charitable trust does, right? So the truism of that is that we use the revenue that we can generate to run subsidized and or free or cheap community programs. And that when we were closed, of course, we didn't run those programs. We didn't turn the heating and lighting on in the great big arena and so forth. So, but what it actually stands out in is if we can run more commercial tenancy, we can run more community programs. And that's our statement of purpose. So the sketch there is basically put the same box that already exists on the other side of the building, which was drawn back in whenever Simon initially drew the buildings back in 10 years ago, 2011, 2010, when it was drawn up. It actually had this box on it. That's a slightly refreshed model. It's drawn at about 1,800 square meters. The thing that makes it viable now is, well, the building situation makes it quite viable, but we've taken out the idea of expanding the seating. It's only if we hold a Commonwealth Games or Olympic Games, which we won't do, we can future-proof for a Commonwealth Games, but instead of putting seating in, we put in more tenancy space. So it's about 1,800 square meters of tenancy. It's about an 8.2 million build cost. We intend as Homer Cycling to raise about 3 million of that, primarily with build partners. We are talking very enthusiastically with the original build team. So it's all in keeping, all local, etc. And the business case projects about an 8.4% return on investment, which over 12 to 20 years becomes the revenue stream that keeps the Homer Cycling profitable and going, including with long-term depreciation. So that's the business proposition. And without please publishing this in our public galleries, we are looking every time we have a board meeting, we revisit this plan and check the green lighting on it or stages of progress. And we're hoping that the business case, or we're aiming that the business case sort of gets really greenlit before Christmas. We keep checking along the way and progressing. And we think we'll have arrangements with bank and funders and so forth, hopefully before Christmas. So that's a bit of a trigger point for the building. Into that building is the idea of the New Zealand Sports Hall of Fame, predominantly in the top floor. So that of the new build, 450 or thereabouts square meters of that new building would become the New Zealand Sports Hall of Fame. And that sits largely then into a paywall, although we'll talk about how cheap and reasonably priced that would be a little bit later on, but also with some free samples, and our spatial design continues to progress. And I think we've said before, we're working with a gentleman called Rick Pearson, who's an architect, an experiential architect. He's done amazing things in different places around the country. And for those of you with that local knowledge, we came across him through an introduction from Alan through the Cambridge Stud, where he's built this incredible Cambridge Stud museum experience, and he's very enthusiastically working with us. So, but we're including the idea of free teasers, free access stuff, using the concourse, using some of the platforms to make sure that we can share some of the Sports Hall of Fame, not just behind a paywall. Okay, so that also links to a spatial video, but I'm not going to. Actually, doesn't have sound on that one. I can play it anyway, but I won't. Okay. I'll throw to some colleagues here. We've very much come at the Hall of Fame increasingly. We'll talk a bit about branding in a second, but increasingly come at this as the current exhibit is a collection of nice memorabilia. I think, again, we've shared stories, Peter Snell's singlet, Ivan Major's Speedway bike, etc. But what we know, and some of our partners really know, is that just showing those exhibits doesn't in itself change behavior in terms of participation. Homer Cycling Charitable Trust remit as a charity is to inspire health and physical well-being throughout Waikato and the surrounds. Okay, so we're pitching this, the Hall of Fame, in exactly the same way. This is not, it is about celebrating champions, but it's about inspiring future participation. So we're working with some pretty exciting partners to try and bring this to life. Miff, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about School Kit again.
Yeah, so School Kit is a local product in Hamilton where they create and so that School Kit is able to go into classrooms all through New Zealand. So we are working with them to build some School Kits that use the Sports Hall of Fame nominees and inductees and some of their stories to inspire that learning in the classrooms. And they have something like 54% of schools on board. So that's just a start, and it'll go further and wider. So through that, there's also opportunities to inspire movement and participation in sports for those School Kits as well. They're not just contained to the classroom, they can go out into the field. They can also use it as a year-long project as well. If it's something about doing some movement and some sport, they can incorporate that as well.
So we're very much looking at being, yes, an experience or an experience and exhibition within the Hall of Fame, but also reaching out from that, whether through School Kit, whether through virtual presence on website, whether through related activities. We've got their Have a Go sessions, the Perry Outdoor Educational Trust, Sanctuary Mountains, so that you can we can sell an experience here or offer an experience to schools and so forth, or tourists, that links more than the 1 or 2 hours that you might spend in the Hall of Fame. So a whole bunch of quite exciting people, and again, quite world-leading people. The Build Media team, for example, a company in Auckland who've done stuff all over the world, did some of the interactive exhibition around the America's Cup, and the Emirates team, and design your own America's Cup boat and race it. So lots of things that people can get involved with rather than just walk around and look. Included, we are in very good discussions with the Maori Sports Hall of Fame. And before I pass to Alan to talk about how we're approaching, I suppose, cultural inclusion or biculturalism, just a note that says this extends both in what we want to do in terms of recognizing sports people, but also in the nature of the whole experience for bicultural, multiculturalism, disability inclusion, etc. We all probably watched the Women's Rugby World Cup final on Saturday night. I sit here sadly as an Englishman at that moment. There's a bit of catch up to do in this regard in the current Sports Hall of Fame. There haven't been many recent inductions. There is a ruling around 5 years retirement, but we know there's a whole bunch of those women that played on Saturday, you know, that are very soon going to be worthy of inclusion. The gentleman on the right in this picture, he's from Northland rather than Waikato, I'm afraid, but Cameron Leslie, recently inducted into the Maori Sports Hall of Fame. Paralympic swimmer, multiple Paralympic champion, great ambassador, great human being. So there's a fair bit of catch up, both in history, but also in inclusion and diversity in the current Hall of Fame. Alan, can you just update us, please, on where we are?
Thanks, Graham. And just following on from Graham's initial comments, Your Worship, and you'll get used to that title, congratulations on your election to all the councillors standing for election who are re-elected, and to the two new councillors, congratulations. Could I just comment that the fact that you've all been re-elected who stood is a ringing endorsement of what Waipa District Council is doing. So obviously you're on the right course, have the support of the community, and I think that's really positive in this particular term, which is going to be exceptionally challenging to local government. So in that regard, congratulations and all the very best continue the good work of Waipa District. Graham's just a... No, we'll see what eventuates, but could I just, following on from Graham's introduction, the opportunity arose for the Maori Sports Hall of Fame to be partnering with us. At the present time, the Maori Sports Hall of Fame has, I think it's a biennial induction ceremony at usually at Ngaruawahia, but their only profile is on the internet. So that's the only way they can acknowledge their achievers. The reason that they haven't gone further than that is that they haven't got the firepower, they haven't got the administration ability. It's not affordable for them to do it on their own. But if they're to partner with us and we do the administration on their behalf, it provides a win-win situation. And Rahui Papa has been appointed by Mana Whenua to sit on our working committee. So we're very fortunate to have Rahui and his connection with the King's Office especially. So I contacted Rahui to say about this meeting with the council. He replied from Egypt, where he's at the Climate Change Summit, to say, put in his apology, but also to say that things are progressing very well with the Maori Sports Hall of Fame and partnering with us. So he's in discussions with a chap, Dickie Garrett, who's been really the Maori Sports Hall of Fame. He's based in Rotorua, not well. He's had discussions with the King and the King's Office, and the King is exceptionally pleased to think that both halls of fame will be in his rohi. So we're making very good progress in that regard. And I suppose it also opens up other funding opportunities or funding partnerships as well with the likes of Te Puni Kaukari, and extending the funding support that we have from Trust Waikato. And while the two will be together, they'll still be separate in that the criteria for induction into the Maori Sports Hall of Fame is different to the standard in the New Zealand Sports Hall of Fame. But you'll have the opportunity to visit both. Obviously, a large number of those in the Maori Sports Hall of Fame are in the New Zealand Sports Hall of Fame, so there is a synergy there. But we think it's exciting, and it's providing a service to our New Zealand-wide community in that the Maori Sports Hall of Fame will get the appropriate recognition that it deserves.
And arguably, is really, one of the questions that's really playing on our minds right now, we could say, is around branding. Through all the conversations we've had, particularly about inspiring active, everybody active, Sport New Zealand, tagline, moving Waikato, Waipa, home of champions. In all the conversations we get into, the idea of simply being a sports hall of fame doesn't quite convey what it is we're trying to do, or necessarily capture the imagination of our audiences. I'm going to ask Simon to speak because frankly, he's been a dog with a bone with this, or a dog with that. I'm not sure. I'll try and stay polite. One of the, over the number of years I've learned, I've worked with Simon, one of the things you absolutely gather is the power of vision and thinking, well, what could be? So for the last several weeks, Simon's been chucking a whole bunch of things into the mixing pot here that grab this idea of inspiring champions, but not simply those champions that stand on an Olympic podium, the champions that we have in everyday life. And I think you guys have had some discussion about that and how that resonates around Waipa and perhaps around the country, you know, the everyday champions that you meet in your walk of life. And our aim would be to inspire that champion in every person, not just those that make the podium. So we're about to embark on a piece of work that's around branding, what naming rights, what naming might be, etc. Do you want to Can you speak to that for a bit?
Yeah, kia ora, everyone. Yes, Graham said, it is a bit of a dog with a bone. I guess it goes back to the original velodrome itself in terms of the vision for that and being more than just about cycling and having a heavy community involvement as opposed to just Olympic sport. So, and of course, we had a good read of the pre-election research around the Home of Champions brand, and there did seem to be some really strong, I guess, validation that brand has got some real longevity to it. So we've really picked that up, and as Graham's mentioned there, Everyday Champions, broadening the reach of that brand. But we do want to undertake some focus group research with various sectors of the community, and with Michelle's help, she's on our committee, we'll try to do that before Christmas, so we get a real a rounded view of branding, and happy to sort of get your input too as the elected officials of the district. We might reach out to the likes of the school sector and the tourism sector beyond the Waipa. So that's a piece of work, and we hope to be in a position to really have that sort of position by sort of February next year, so that we can really start to develop our collateral in terms of the actual vision for the and the actual branding of the development as we start to get into construction. I guess the other role I've had sort of lately is around the funding, and we've obviously worked hard around a principal partnership, first of all, because you've got to start with the big rocks, and apart from Waipa itself and a few corporates and trusts, we've reconnected with Grassroots Trust, who are the naming rights or the principal partner of the velodrome itself, and who do quite a lot in the Waipa district, as you know. And they've gratefully come on board as the principal partner of the Hall of Fame, and that involves a $1.1 million capital grant, plus another 300,000 operating support towards that outreach, the school kit that you heard Miff talking about earlier. And of course, Grassroots are very much wanting to get, the name of the trust sort of indicates that, wants to get into the schools, the youth, the education, and that really reinforces our commitment around getting activity levels up. COVID, as you know, has had all sorts of impacts on the community, and one of those unfortunate consequences is that activity levels have dropped quite significantly since 2019. Sport Waikato have just put out a new bit of research, and it's sort of dropped. I guess they have a benchmark of something like 5 or 6 hours a week for youth, and that's dropped down to under 60% now. I think it's the late 50s, despite all the efforts of Sport New Zealand and Sport Waikato and all the funding that goes into it. So we really want to do our piece to, I guess, move the dial in the right direction in terms of activity levels, and using that, hopefully, Home of Champions branding to achieve that. So I'll be getting more involved, as Graham mentioned. The original vision for the velodrome had that additional part to it, and extending beyond cycling to broader sports. And so this opportunity with the Hall of Fame or Home of Champions or whatever it might be called is really sort of captured with both hands. So I'll continue with the Trust Board. We're in a transition phase now. I think we've been a working group. We're now going to, in conjunction with the Dunedin fraternity, create the new trust to go forward from with a representation across both the old and the new, I guess, and also some input from perhaps Sport New Zealand in terms of that new trust. So hopefully I'll have some involvement there, and we'll kick on, and we're probably 80% of the way there in terms of the funding of the 3.4 million. And there is a new tourism opportunity that Mr. Miff has uncovered. I think it's a $54 million tourism related grant that looks at innovation funds. So we'll have a crack at that. The Māori element and the technology element are two of the 5 key criteria there. So that might give us some more opportunity to develop the technology and the Māori Sports Hall of Fame. And we've also got an area that we have not allocated in the top floor, which is probably about the size of, I would say, of this room, where we see that potential for the Māori Sports Hall of Fame to sit alongside the New Zealand Sports Hall of Fame. So enough from me.
Sorry, and on this slide you've got in front of you in terms of value proposition. Of course, we do thank you for the support with that loan underwrite that you committed last year, which is outstanding. And I'll make note there of the Sport New Zealand funding, which we now have guaranteed or in writing, where the previous for the change in value proposition, where Sport New Zealand had previously frozen their commitment to the Sports Hall of Fame. They've now not only reintroduced it, but they've doubled what they were funding before. So we're pretty happy, obviously, with that as a dollar sign, but we're also really happy with their commitment to the value proposition, which is very exciting. The other, I suppose, dog with a bone, if that's not an impolite expression, is that the last message that we took from you guys was to hear from the community. And so MIF has sort of championed this area and had us dashing all over the place. If I don't know, get you to update here on our community engagement.
Yeah, so over the last 6 months, we've gone out to community groups and presented the vision and the mission and what we're hoping to achieve with the Sports Hall of Fame, and given the background. So you can see there who we have talked to so far: the community board, principals, Destination Cambridge, 60s Up, Rotary Cambridge, Grey Power, and we have Rebus and the Lions coming up as well. So we're expecting more questions and more pushback, I guess, and more curiosity, or there is curiosity, but more questions about what it meant for them as ratepayers, I guess. But the overwhelming response was really, really positive. A lot of people were sort of saying, how quickly can it come? They understood the vision of having this local attraction, this local facility, but being a national attraction, and what it would bring to the visitors into town, both for their own visitors and for the community, what it would add to Cambridge. So yeah, it's been really well received. We've still got some more groups to go. Happy to talk to anybody else that would like us to come along and chat to them as well. But yeah, it was very positive so far.
Thanks, Miff. I think that's great. Will there be the opportunity, will you have open days where, I mean, not everyone belongs to that particular groups up there. So I thought that would be a really good way to encourage just, people who are interested in the project, because there may be other funders out there as well.
There will be.
So engaging that Cambridge community. But the one group that I see missing up there as well is the business community. Is that something you'll look at?
Yeah, I caught up with Kelly on that yesterday, actually. So that's going to be in progress too. Yeah.
Just quickly too, I quite agree with what you're doing. I think it's absolutely superb. Just to remember the sports clubs, the big ones, like we've got the Te Awamutu Sports, and we've also got Hautaki Group. These are people who have a great interest in this sort of thing, and I really think you want to promote it in those areas as well.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Having been privy to this presentation on a number of occasions, I have to say that my enthusiasm just builds and builds for this project. I think it's a tremendous opportunity, and thank you to your combined efforts for bringing it to our region. I think that's tremendous. Just looking at the bigger picture and the heritage offering that we're going to have for Waipa, and particularly, I think, for Cambridge. We've got Te Arawai that's being developed, but in terms of Cambridge, we've seen the Cambridge Stud Heritage Centre being opened. We've got the Muscle Car Museum being opened. We've got now the New Zealand Sports Hall of Fame and the Maori Hall of Fame, and that's all just building to that attractiveness of Cambridge as a destination, and also as a destination that offers, when we do get the odd wet day, it's an attraction that really does meet that. And there are many other destinations that don't have that facility, so it's really just adding to the attractiveness of Waipa as a destination. So thank you very much for your efforts in this regard.
Thank you, Roger. And look, this slide, I think it come to you in the last presentation as well. And I can throw to Miff to speak again, but we've spoken before about some of those benefits to Cambridge and the positioning of this to Cambridge, to Waipa, to Waikato, and the positioning of this around other tourist activities. So budgeting, your Hobbiton's and Waitomos and so forth, and Hamilton Gardens. Our budgeting is based conservatively on 30,000 visitors a year, average ticket sale of $10 to make it affordable, school groups, etc. So we fully believe that there's a strong and growing presence and a great economic benefit around the region. The last piece I'd just like to touch on is sort of a where are we then at the moment. We have been working very closely with the current New Zealand Sports Hall of Fame Trust Board. The intention is that the entity will remain as the New Zealand Sports Hall of Fame in its current trust. So we'll just basically transport an existing trust and switch the name on the bank account kind of thing. We've been working with Harkness Henry lawyers in town who do a lot of stuff with home cycling, etc., on modernizing and refreshing that trust deed. That's pretty much finished. It has some relevance to local representation on the trust board. So wherever this is housed, it will have local representation on trust board. Simon just quietly said he hopes to remain interested. I would share that Simon's expressed a willingness to chair that trust board, which we think is an incredible bonus in moving forward, because we want continuity through the planning work we've done into what will be a refreshed trust board. That the aim of that is that the current Hall of Fame will have a special general meeting in January, which would pass through a new deed, and very shortly afterwards would transition the whole group of trustees. Some representation from the current, so we maintain continuity, representation from our project team, and then some other very highly regarded people for a trustee group. I think it's 5 or 6, is it 5 or 6? Anyway, regardless. Reference to the project team that continue to work very hard behind the scenes. Michelle got mentioned earlier without confirming, it's Michelle Hollands, who many of you will know, and our iwi relations with Rahui Papa. So we have in terms of the project progress, we have a trigger. We have triggers sort of December, January, one being around the build project itself, the other being around the transition of the trustees that basically install a new group of trustees to run this in Cambridge. And then about an 18-month lead-in plan, both around the building and around the transition of the artifacts. So there's a bit of work to do around artifact cataloging and preservation and transportation and storage and all that kind of stuff. The aim would be to stay open if it's financially viable. The aim will be to stay open in Dunedin while that work is done until the new venue is ready. Although that is challenging at the visitor numbers that they have down there, particularly in winter. So we also have a sort of a plan B or a thought B option, which starts to bring teaser artifacts and basically get a teaser presence going at the velodrome prior to opening. So that's where we are. We've got a couple of important triggers in the next 2 to 3 months, ideally leading to transition and opening here in Q3, Q4, 2024 into a new build. I suppose our closing is to ask you how we can keep working with you, how we can keep you informed. To thank you again for the loan underwrite that you've made. And to thank you for your time again today. So any further questions?
Thanks, Graham. Roger.
Exciting development, exciting build, whole load of new tenants moving into the building, 30,000 people a year visiting on top of what's an already building sports activity program there at the velodrome. What are you going to do about parking and accommodating all of this horde that's going to become visiting? Because it seems if you've got a reasonably limited footprint there. So I think, yeah.
Yep, and it's a great question. And it's a question that's come up, and it's a question currently in the resource consent process that's going on there. So we're exploring, I suppose, two approaches really. One, what can we do on our own footprint? And there is some space and some movement that we can get there, I think, which was up to sort of 40 or 50 additional car parks on our own footprint. And obviously talking very closely with St. Peter's and the adjoining piece of land, which we currently sometimes use for overflow. The primary overflow currently goes onto their sports fields, which is not a great solution for them either. So the probability is that we have a solution there, which has some relevance also to that piece of land that's currently zoned commercial on the school property as well. So I suspect we'll land with a partnership plan with them. And coach parking, yeah.
Thank you, Graham, for the presentation, and thank you, Miff. Hey, just a quick question. Will there be any engagement with local mana whenua around, or just in that community backing? Noticed that, mana whenua haven't been included there.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll get Alan to speak, including in the transition process. So if you can.
Yeah, thanks for that. I didn't pick up the entire question, but clearly we have already a close relationship with mana whenua, and that is now extended to mana whenua with Ngāi Tahu and Dunedin. So the transition from Dunedin to here is being done with the full knowledge and full involvement of iwi at both ends. And as I mentioned, we're working very closely with Rahui Papa, who has been appointed by mana whenua to be on this group. So there is that very close liaison, and of course that extends to the King's Office. So I don't think we could ask for better support and better engagement. So does that answer your question?
Yep, yeah, it does. I guess when have you spoken to Ngāti Koro ki Kahukura, the actual office, Ngāti Haua, their office, and any other area around there? Is the difference between talking to Rahui Papa, who I know is a very connected man, very well respected, particularly to those two groups as well. My soft advice would be to talk to the officers of those two iwi rather than through Rahui, because I know he's a busy man.
Yes.
And sometimes at times may not actually represent the interests of local mana whenua.
Correct. And yes, we have followed that process, because initially we were working with Poto Davis, and they had a hui because she felt she wasn't able to continue in the role. They had a hui and of Ngāti Koro ki Kahukura and Ngāti Haua, and Rahui was appointed at that hui. So it's not, we didn't go directly to Rahui, we went through those marae.
Thank you.
Thanks for that clarification. Any other questions for this team? No? No? Look, oh, Simon.
Just one, just following up, Gary asked me regarding Te Awa, which obviously is a bit of a component within this precinct as well. And we expect we'll need more car parking as well with the opening of the final stage in a couple of weeks' time through the Riverlea Gully through to Hamilton Gardens. And Miff's probably closer to the statistics than I am, but yeah, we're getting really, really good numbers on that trail, and we expect that to grow exponentially through the summer. So real good opportunities, both indoor and outdoor, in terms of the synergies with the Sports Hall of Fame. So we're looking forward to that, and we'll have a proper, I think we're going to call it a celebration on the 25th of March, where we'll sort of bring the community together and have an event at Hamilton Gardens. So we'll keep you posted on that. Just thought I'd add that in.
Great, thanks for that. Gary.
So Graham, yeah, to your last question is how can we keep you informed and how do we need to be considered in the 2023 annual plan? You know, we can take this information forward into that plan. I've had a session with the council in relation to finances, and because of pressures around inflation and interest rates and those sorts of things, finances are tight next year. In the meantime, will the loan guarantee suffice to keep you going?
Yeah, no, it's a great start. Thank you, and we will just keep going. We're we're very confident and very committed to the project. So it'll be great to keep in touch about that, obviously, and you know, any further support will be brilliant. But we'll keep going.
Yeah, so I haven't got an inkling of what the numbers look like yet, but we can certainly factor this in and bring it back to the council for consideration. And when it does, we can invite you to come and present to that as well.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Claire.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I was just picking up something that Simon said about Te Awa and, you know, the exponential growth in users. Like, you know, like when you start biking, you know, you want to get back to that point that you started from, you know, to get in your car generally. I wonder if there's any scope to have a shuttle service that, you know, operates along the length in such a way that people that wanted to visit the Sports Hall of Fame might make use of it, and that would reduce your need for car parks, because you know you can work out, you know, the usual length of something like the cycling, like from the Hamilton Gardens through to the Advantage Room or something. You know what the time's going to be and how frequently the service could be, but you could promote a visit to the Sports Hall of Fame even for people who weren't using Te Awa, you know, like, and yeah, you could get something going there that'd be quite cost effective, actually, I'd imagine. Yeah,
so there's a weekend service now that started up a few months ago, and that's going really successfully with Riverside Adventures. So that's from Ngaruawahia to Karapiro. You can choose your spot to pick up, drop off, and leave your car. So that was a bit of a leap of faith for them, and it's gone super well, and they're doing lots of private shuttles as well. So that facility is there, and there's also another company called River Riders that offers similar custom service. So more of that will come, and that will build in, and there's also developments at the velodrome as well that will ensure that that kind of service can expand. Yeah.
Just adding to that, in fact, I've got a coffee with Steve Hasty right after this, just to discuss more around Te Awa, and of course Riverside Adventures are also have moved to the velodrome, so it's all starting to come together there. So the opportunity, I guess our trust has been very much focused on the building of the trail, which that 3-year project took 13 years, but that's okay. But now we're moving into we're putting our tourism hats on and events hats, and hence the discussion with Steve and others who can really start to think about getting accessibility and use numbers up.
That's great, because, you know, as council grapples with climate change, we are always coming under pressure now for emissions and what sort of profiles we are encouraging, and to have that component as any proposal, I think would be really well received.
With another hat, which is the Bike Revolution Cambridge hat, which we obviously support with Sarah, and I think the next phase is around from Gaslight to Carlisle, and trying to really create a safe and a secure passage through the town of Cambridge. That's going to be where we're going to start talking to you more about that.
Gary had a comment there.
Yes, Wayne Mo wished to add some more, but look, my understanding of the Resource Management Act would now mean that council's unable to require car parks to be provided as part of any of these developments. Rather, we need to work with developers to look for ways of mitigating the effect of these new uses without, you know, stopping short of car parking, but looking at things like shuttles.
Just to further point to that, because I think it's amazing how things feed off each other, and you know, and snowball and cascade, for example, whether it's heritage pieces or the number of bicycles around and so on. And we are, Miff's alluded to it, we're in the process of changing the functionality of what's currently the bike shop in the velodrome, which sounds like just a commercial thing, but the bike shop was there because of the sponsorship with Avanti. It was perfect, it's brilliant, it services people who ride on the track, but it's not a viable business proposition. It never has been. So with Avanti obviously moved out, we have this kind of legacy there, and about to change it up to be well, the company's Riverside Adventures, right? To come in and actually do e-bike hire, but make it more of a hub. So running shuttles or something out of there even is brilliant. And I was thinking if I was part of that initial vision of how this all sort of feeds off each other, you'd be pretty excited in 2022 how it all links together. So thank you for your point.
Your Worship, could I just mention another linkage, which I think is important, and that is that on every paving slab near enough in the middle of Cambridge, we have a Walk of Fame, which of course reflects a number of important and great people in Cambridge sporting history. And so that's another linkage that leads nicely on to the New Zealand Hall of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame.
Any other questions or comments? These fine people. Look, it doesn't look like it. Hey, very clearly, you're an experienced, skilled, and passionate bunch of people, and it's a really exciting project for you all to be pushing on with. And as Gary alluded to, no doubt we will hear from you through the annual plan process. But look, just full kudos to you in a situation where you've got lots of moving parts, and it seems that this forms part of a very much larger picture in terms of that physical activity and tourism draw to Cambridge, which is fantastic. Really exciting to see it all come together for you. So look forward to seeing it come to fruition in late 2024. Stay in touch. Thanks very much.